Welcome to another traveler video here. And in this one, this is the another one of new resources I've picked up recently. Um, this one is called the Sector Construction Guide, and I just stumbled on it, that it was out there, and I found it and looked interesting, so I went ahead and picked it up. This is probably about a month ago. Uh, and again, evaluating it within the content, within the context of my solo scout campaign. Although I think more I'll say it's my subsector and maybe full sector detailed creation simulation instead of necessarily. I'm just using my scout ship here just to drive, putting all these rules through, see what they encounter. Up here they encountered an empire through some rolls I found out. I used pocket empires. Kind of use that to dry run some space combat rules, although the new version of the Traveler Companion has vector-based combat, which I'm going to try out hopefully. And at some point I may even switch to a naval campaign. But let's come back here. We're talking about the Sector Construction Guide. And this came out in 2022, apparently, copyright 2022. And by the name, this is rather big. A sector is 4x4, 16 of these subsectors, each of which can have who knows what in it. So, creating a whole sector is pretty involved. And again, it's your philosophy. If I'm doing this for an RPG, I'm just going to generate enough I need to run the campaign, keep my players happy, keep them busy, even if it's a solo campaign. But in my case, I'm going over to the simulation side, and I'm using the World Builder's Handbook. That should say something here. And then here, introduction, based on the Traveler Core Worldbook and Universe Creation chapter, no additional materials beyond this guide are necessary. But referees wishing to add additional detail to star systems can find it in the Deep Space Exploration Handbook, which I've covered in a few videos in the past, but here we go. That's what they're referring to. The expanded star creation. Traveler campaign contains additional rules. What I find interesting, though, is they don't mention the World Builder's Handbook. Now, this probably came out before it, so that's probably why, but that goes into, and when I say World Builder's Handbook, I actually mean the newest, most recently released one that I'm using for my campaign, but they do reference it out here. Here's Traveler Map they refer to get information, but they broaden it out all the way to here, creating a whole universe. Okay, just do a universe, kind of get some theme for my universe. Okay, the themes can include conflict between the intersecting colonies, two major sophonts, the decline and fall of an empire, who knows? If you want to set that. System creation variants. There we go. We've got different ways, you've seen those in previous videos. Major intelligent life and polities. I guess that's collections or empires. Anomalies, and I think what they're doing here is they're talking about variants. I could say, well, I could start with defining two big empires, three big empires, etc. Or I could have anomalies, part of a rift, recent supernova, recovery, ancient ruins, old jump space, maybe more hazardous, deadly diseases. Okay, so it's almost like you're writing your storyline. And then they talk about building a timeline for that. So you're building the backstory, I'll say for your whole sector, not universe, but your whole sector here. And here we go. We see this is what a sector is. It's made up of 16 subsectors. And you can create unique names first for the sector, and then for the subsectors, and then for the systems, and keep going. Then they're giving you an example here. Trade codes, and they're building out what empire. So we see Imperial clients, Zondi, and then you get your sector map, and they're using an example that's already out there, 4 even, and it's split between these two. They got the systems made, etc. So we're working our way down here. We got the whole sector, and we're doing out the subsectors, and then variants again. System creation procedures, anomalies, timelines on a war. So you're literally building a war. I mean a whole backstory potentially for your whole sector. Um, and then they get into system creation. And the methods for creating a sector consist of the following phases: determine the system location, determine its physical characteristics, social, and additional. So this sounds more like main world creation by default. And then here we go again, 4, 5, or 6, but you can take it to 5 or 6. And then they do something interesting here. This is a whole sector, so here, here it's typical 4, 5, or 6, but anything in these subsectors is 5 or 6. Here, it's moving probably out rimward. That's 6. 5, for whatever reason, this may be a rift. So we can have a rift, an arm, a rift, and then out beyond the rim. And this is the number you use for creating systems there. That's an interesting idea. And what I'm thinking of doing too is taking my subsector I'm generating here and plugging it into a bigger sector map. And it looks where I probably put it is here or here, not the edges. And therefore, well, spend the rest of my life doing all of this if I'm doing it at the detail. So then here we see the resultant map. And then we're talking about main worlds here. So we've already jumped into main worlds creating this, but your main world creation is potentially influenced by what your backstory is here. Maybe it was Star Trek and you got the planet killers, the giant log, so there's not that many worlds. They've all been consumed. And then they're getting into some base hydrographics, temperature, gas giants. I don't think this is very different from what you get in the core rules. And then they start moving right into social characteristics, population, government, law level, starport. And it looks like these are just a summary of the rules from the core rule book here, tech level. And then they give their example, trade codes. All of this is from the core rule book. And then they talk about sector details. And again, it's more backstory here. Native, intelligent life, scattered settlements. Which one? Settlement waves, population, generation. Actually, it's good. It prompts you to think about what your whole sector, what the backstory is, which then influences as you generate the subsectors, something I may visit here for this if I decide to go that route. Native frequency for native intelligent life, randomly rolling for each system on a full pass, fair number of, yeah. So they give you guidelines on how to just randomize where we're going to find those. That could be interesting to use. That's kind of like the top-down approach, where in the World Builder's Handbook they talk about, I'm kind of relying on that to necessarily generate native life, native intelligent life, potentially, not as likely. And then beyond that, random events, that's what got me this whole empire up here. So, but it's worth looking at that. And then we got pocket empire ripples. How they expand out, settlement waves, population generation, and they give you how to roll for that. I think I went through pocket empires. That goes really more detailed on how things are. There's travel zones, isolation, and again, example, the Foreven Sector. And they've generated some native stuff, scattered settlements, and then they give you a population map and modifiers, it looks like, on those, depending on what's going on. And then we get into main world design, main sequence. Let's see what we got. Oh, this is nice. We get world map, although I've seen other ones that give this. So you can generate world maps for worlds where it makes sense. Moons. So we've seen all this. Social design, talking about its history, its population. Wow, you could build a whole thing. And then they give you an example of Avalar and kind of a general world summary sheet for each. Yeah, good example here. And then a nice colorful map. Then we got the polity design. That means the governments. They talk about the tech levels here. Tech levels 9 and 10 can do jump 1. 11 can do 2, etc. They give you some guidelines there. Historical development. How do they relate to each other? This could be covered by Pocket Empires too. I wonder if there's a move like they did with the World Builder Handbook to update Pocket Empires at some point. Which I used to generate these two empires, the Zashans and the Surans. I got that in previous videos. Then they give you an example, detail of the Avalar consulate. And then you can design your intelligent life. Physical characteristics, they've given you a table here. This is kind of cool. Yeah, it's a D66. Non-standard characteristics on a D6. Let's see, and then you get your intelligent life summary sheet. So that could come in handy. They give you an example. And a completed description, background, here's another one. And then sector finalization. And this is getting into what's going on in the sector at the time, or subsector, etc. Then they talk about finalizing the one, their example here. And that's it. So the question is, what's useful in this one? I did this table here is a good one for maybe starting to generate alien species. That's solid. I could use that. The rest is kind of guidelines so far. Although it's think big, go big. I'm probably gonna change this map here shortly and make it either this one or this one of the whole sector. Let's see. The summary sheets, they could be handy. World maps, where it makes sense. I'll show this in a later video, some basic web pages that can generate this stuff. So that could be going into detail. And again, that's showing my focus is on the detail of, getting all the simulation going to create this, not so much secondarily the RPG portion. There's a blank world map. Man world. This is an interesting idea there. Population. So, I'm kind of asking what would I use here? The detail I'm going to is probably beyond what this covers, although this does give good ideas for, ideas for things to do, etc. System creation, guidelines on, doing the background for your site, trying to write a story, a storyline, etc. Then they give you ideas of how to do variants. So it's kind of giving you ideas on what to do. It's not necessarily a down in the weeds kind of detailed, like World Builder's Handbook or Pocket Empires, or even we were looking at it here, even the Deep Space Handbook. So again, it's good. It gives some ideas, etc., which I'm going to try and incorporate. I'm going to have to spend some time harmonizing all this, and then see how it applies here. But again, it's a good resource. Look at what I covered here, decide if it makes sense for you or not. It does provide perhaps a good way to generate a whole sector or get the background. So, if you're a game master or you need ideas for your solo campaign, could be helpful here. All right, I'll end it here at 15 minutes. That's good. So if you've listened, thank you for listening. If you like, comments appreciated, and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for listening. This was a review of, let's end with the artwork here, the Sector Construction Guide from Traveler Mongoose. Thanks for listening.